After Tim Burton bowed out of the Batman franchise following some creative differences with Warner Bros. Studios, Joel Schumacher was hired to make a sequel, and Batman Forever was born. Released in 1995, starring Val Kilmer as Batman, replacing Michael Keaton, with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones taking on classic villains The Riddler and Two-Face, the film was a box office hit and spawned one more sequel. We're not gonna talk about that masterpiece though, not yet.
Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman.
As successful as Batman Forever was, however, it wasn't exactly critically beloved, and to this day it's often put on the same level as the much mocked Batman and Robin. Joel Schumacher, who was a great director, is also often dismissed as a terrible filmmaker because of that, which obviously is very unfair. With Batman Forever, Joel Schumacher was given the impossible task of outdoing Tim Burton's vision, a vision that put the Dark Knight on the mainstream pop culture map. And while he didn't quite get there, he presented us with a unique vision of Batman and Gotham City we will never forget. Schumacher never fully got the credit he deserved for Batman Forever, though the film did get an Oscar nomination back in the day for the bold cinematography. And there is a movement brewing right now online asking to release the Schumacher cut of the film, so it looks like this film has something of a cult following. Sure, Batman Forever is often a pretty wacky film, and it's certainly a departure from its predecessors. The modern 1960s show vibe we get here being considerably lighter than before, even compared to Batman Returns.
I'll get drive-through.
And this approach turned off some critics and made it, at best, a guilty pleasure for most people. But today, together, we'll see that the film is not without its complexity. There is an element of genius to Batman Forever, which is not to say it's a masterpiece or perfect movie where every aspect of it is genius. It's clearly not. It's just a lot more interesting of a film than it looks like on the surface, if you dig into its themes and ideas a little bit. Part 1. Who is Batman? Taking a page from Batman Returns, which set out to dissect our hero through his villains rather than another origin story, Batman Forever is all about the two sides of this mysterious character. Two sides that, by this point, are fighting each other for total control. It's no accident that Two-Face is one of this movie's most important characters. At the beginning of the film, Bruce Wayne is still spending his nights kicking ass as Batman and his days as a suave billionaire. But he is going through an existential crisis of sorts. He is plagued by terrifying nightmares, he is haunted by a traumatic childhood, and envious of a normal life that he just cannot have. When he meets Dr. Chase Meridian, a smart and attractive psychologist played by Nicole Kidman, Bruce finds himself ready to face his demons, tell her who he really is, and give up his vigilante life once and for all. Let someone else deal with the villains who are breaking Gotham.
I've dedicated my life to helping strangers I've never met. Faces I've never seen. Well, the innocent aren't faceless anymore.
But things he finds out quickly are just not that straightforward. The more Bruce Wayne thinks about the idea of not being Batman anymore, not letting himself be ruled by his dark past, the more he likes it. Dr. Chase Meridian herself is conflicted between who she is more attracted to, Bruce Wayne or Batman, which kind of mirrors Bruce's own self-doubt. He pretends to be disappointed when she rejects him as Batman, but he can't help himself make this face when he's out of sight. Every other major character in this film helps us understand Bruce Wayne and what he's dealing with internally. Robin, played by Chris O'Donnell, is introduced in this movie in a shocking way as his entire family is heartlessly murdered right in front of him by Two-Face. Bruce Wayne decides to promptly take him under his wing and let him live in Wayne Manor, but the damage has already been done. Dick Grayson has one motivation left now: revenge.
All I can think about every second of the day is getting Two-Face. He took my whole life.
Dick Grayson is of course Bruce Wayne's reflection of his younger self. Initially, he is inconsolable, untamable, wild and rebellious. The kindness of Alfred and Bruce can only go so far. Ultimately, he has to find his own way, and his own way leads him to the truth about his host.
Who is Batman?
Bruce Wayne is indeed Batman. But as everything comes in two in this movie, two sets of tragedies, two sides to every character, to every coin, two hostages Batman must save.
You have 2 minutes. Look at us. Two of a kind.
The revelation of Bruce Wayne's identity is mirrored in the Riddler's own discovery, when his brain drain machine, the box, is used on Bruce Wayne without his knowledge, and he finally finds out the truth himself. This, however, is not achieved by accident but by design. The result was an accident. He didn't expect to learn that much about Bruce Wayne, but he designed the machine, of course. There are two ways then to get to the bottom of what this mysterious hero is all about. But is that enough? The movie suggests no, but we'll get to after that. Robin meets this news with anger as he starts to blame Batman for not saving his parents. Eventually, he becomes seduced by the idea of becoming a superhero himself, but what he misses is the obvious. Batman did not save his parents. Superheroes are therefore not infallible, so he is jumping into this in haste, setting himself up for disappointment. Riddler, on the other hand, along with Two-Face, meet the revelation with glee. The torture of Bruce Wayne and Batman will be a sweet, sweet release. It will mark an end to what they hate the most, the one person standing in their way.
Why can't you just die?
But they ignore their own insecurities, which end up coming back to defeat them. One fun visual motif we see in this movie that clues us into the roles that these villains play in the story, as well as Batman himself, is the use of the bat signal. The first time we see it, it is obscured by Two-Face's spinning coin, foreshadowing Bruce Wayne's Batman dilemma and Two-Face's motivation to make Batman disappear. Then, later, the Riddler takes over the bat signal, turning it into a big question mark. The Batman logo is overwhelmed by the green beams the Riddler has added, hinting at the Riddler's goal to become more powerful than Batman, and of course the big question at hand here, who is Batman? Skipping to the end of the film, Batman flying through the Batman logo is a cathartic moment for him, as he now understands that people are counting on Batman to exist, that he really does make a difference. The final shot wraps up the motif as Batman and Robin run in front of the bat signal, united. One has become two. Batman has claimed himself again, and now both heroes have found a purpose. Dr. Chase Meridian also plays a part in this motif as she summons the bat signal herself earlier in the film, which prompts Batman to become overshadowed by himself, by Bruce Wayne. Dr. Chase is not a villain, of course, but this movie is fitting for a psychologist character whose whole thing is to bring out her patient's past and secrets to help him through it. The irony being here that the doctor develops an obsession herself with Batman and finds herself ultimately conflicted as to who she would prefer as a partner, or rather, who she finds herself more stimulated by as a case study, but also as a lover. I mean, look at this mess of papers here. Doesn't that remind you of the Riddler's own mess in his little house? She once calls Batman cursed. She finds him to be self-flagellating to a certain extent. And this is a key component of Bruce Wayne's internal debate. Is he Batman because he truly seeks justice? Or is this some kind of punishment he's inflicting on himself because Bruce Wayne alone just wasn't enough to save his parents? The movie is all about forcing Batman to face his demons in order to help him, or, in the case of the villains, destroy him. The search for the truth, as depicted in this film, is an endeavor that's both cathartic and doomed. Every character here seeks the answer to a big question. By answering it, they free themselves temporarily, but along the way find that a big part of finding oneself is disappointment and sacrifice. Part 2: Joygasm. As previously mentioned, catharsis is an essential and exciting part of our character's search for truth. As Batman, Bruce Wayne is at his most powerful and in control. The same goes for Edward Nygma and Harvey Dent. Their alter egos have become their true selves. They enjoy being their alter egos to a certain extent because who they were before was just not enough. Edward Nygma is indeed a genius, but he is blinded by that talent and suffers from an unhealthy obsession with Bruce Wayne, the head of the company he works for. When he meets Bruce for the first time, he is like a fanboy meeting his favorite celebrity. He blames his boss for keeping them apart, whatever that means. He calls him his idol and even goes as far as to mistakenly introduce himself as Bruce Wayne.
Oh, Bruce Wayne.
No, that's my name.
Unfortunately, he is in for a rude awakening when Bruce Wayne finds that his invention raises too many questions. This crushes Edward, who decides to give birth to a new persona, the Riddler. He is loving every minute of being this new self, from putting together his creepy little riddles to wearing the wildest, greenest, tightest outfits. His destruction of the Batcave is his joygasm, his proudest moment, and he has the time of his life. As does Jim Carrey, clearly. He is finally in full control of his life, but is he? If so, then why pick an alter ego based on a boxed puppet with only two, there's that number again, modes? Riddler is a lot more like Two-Face than he thinks, ruled by two things: right answers and wrong answers. And why show up to a big gala, his biggest, greatest moment, dressed up exactly like Bruce Wayne, with the mole and everything?
How's my mole?
Fine.
still trying to impress him, still trying to be him. Even his company logo, Nigma Tech, has the W of Wayne in there, and a little bit of Batman's logo too, if you look closely. This shows us that, yes, he has finally reached the top of the Gotham City elite. Deep inside, he remains that insecure and bitter nerd who was shut down by his idol and remains intimidated by him. He remains Edward Nigma, which, by the way, his name is Enigma, alright, which is not even a real name, so who knows, maybe he doesn't even have a self, and maybe this plays a part in his insecurities. The funny thing is, when Nigma finds out that Bruce Wayne is Batman, he turns his own weapons into little bats as a kind of parody or homage. Nigma wants to be Bruce Wayne, and so it follows that Riddler kinda wants to be Batman.
I'm Batman.
Two-Face blames Batman for not saving him after Boss Maroni throws acid into his face in the middle of the courtroom. He is driven by hate for the Dark Knight, who still tried to save him, but he has also embraced his physical appearance and penchant for crime, cruelty, and destruction, turning it into an extravagant lifestyle he seems to enjoy. I mean, the guy just has Drew Barrymore walk around wearing this in his house. I mean, he has organized his entire life as a two-sided coin. His bad guy lair comes with a bright side and a dark side. Two ladies with very different personalities called Sugar, played by Drew Barrymore, and Spice, played by Debbie Mazar. He refers to himself as we or us. This is all fun and games for him. This ongoing battle with Batman, even if it's all hate-driven and he has a very real desire to kill him. His Joygasm is setting up these dastardly traps, going after Batman. He's always giggling away, suggesting that he's over it, and much happier than he was before his face was half destroyed, but obviously he's not over it. It's all a big show, a big cope. While on the surface he's laughing away, he really never forgave Batman for what happened to him. So when Batman offers his help, he rejects it every time. Partly because of his anger towards Batman, but partly because he's in denial about not needing help. Batman didn't help when it mattered, why should he help now? There is a severe lack of trust there, understandably. Two-Face is ruled by a philosophy, the crooked remnants of a justice he once defended, the coin. Whatever the coin says, goes. A philosophy which ends up being his Achilles heel, but that comes later. What differentiates Batman from his foes in this movie is Bruce's desire to shed his alter ego, not his own self. He wants to save who he is, not run from it. He also has his own philosophy, to defend the innocent, to stop the pain he felt from being felt by others, but seeing Dick Grayson potentially go down the wrong path is the last straw. If this is all happening again, with Batman in the picture and all these problems still going on, was it all for nothing? This self-doubt is Bruce Wayne's Achilles heel here, and he pays a price for it as his loved ones are put in harm's way. Because, and this is important, every Joygasm comes with a sad gasm. Worst phrase I've ever said. Part 3, questions. The main motif in Batman Forever, in case you didn't guess, is questions. Good luck counting every single question mark in this movie. I've tried, believe me. There are many questions asked in this film, but what is the main conundrum here? What is this movie asking? What is it saying? Well, we can go to Edward Nigma's first big rhetorical question to try and answer that.
Precisely. What's on all our minds?
Bruce Wayne recounts to Dr. Chase Meridian how he became Batman through a recurring nightmare he's been having, which she identifies as repressed memories. He remembers his parents' wake and his father's journal, which would remain half empty forever. This sequence aims to show us how Bruce Wayne became Batman and how the death of his parents made him feel, but it tells us a little bit more than that too. It also hides some critical information which is revealed to us much later. What is Bruce Wayne's biggest fear at this point? Is it just loneliness? Not being able to live a normal life and sharing it with someone else? Or perhaps it's more not living up to what he hoped Batman would be. Like I said before, if evil repeats itself in similar ways regardless, then what good is Batman? What this sequence also tells us is it's more about the uncertainty of it all. He doesn't want anyone to end up like his parents, but he also doesn't want his life to end up like his father's journal, just empty. Batman is this immortal creature that Bruce has created, but Bruce himself will die, and what then? What will be his legacy? There's a deleted scene to this movie where Bruce Wayne encounters this giant bat in this dream, and this is the perfect vision of how he sees himself, right? As the Batman, he is this horrible monster that he just doesn't want to be 24/7. Maybe it's time to kill the monster once and for all. I really like this shot here at the beginning of when Bruce Wayne meets Chase, as Bruce steps back and lets his shadow, the shadow of Batman, take over for a minute as he crashes through her door. Even as Bruce Wayne in the middle of the day, he can't help himself but be the Dark Knight, the monster he's created. The death of the Flying Graysons is such a pivotal scene as everything comes together in one terrible disaster. As Two-Face takes over the circus show, Edward Nygma watches with interest and glee. Here is someone he knows he can use, someone with a penchant for the dramatic and the targeted obsession of his own. Another criminal truth seeker, he believes. Bruce Wayne is ready at this point to reveal his true identity to Two-Face. He in fact does so instantly and without hesitation. He shows how important saving innocent lives is to him in this moment. Unfortunately, he is drowned out by the crowd and decides to fight his way through Two-Face's goons. This, in a way, shows Bruce Wayne that freeing himself of the truth is just not enough. The key is how to do it. And this is an interesting mirror to the scene where Batman tries to save Harvey Dent. In that moment, Batman was there. He tried to do the right thing, but it just wasn't enough. He can't let this happen again here. And spoilers, it does. History repeats itself. And this doesn't help his existential crisis. Two-Face is the perfect character to bring Dick Grayson to a place where Bruce Wayne himself was many years ago, as he is a dark mirror of what Bruce Wayne has become. A man divided against himself, with obsession and revenge as his only purpose. The presence of Two-Face is a constant reminder for Batman of his past failures and potential future failures. Just like how the Penguin in Batman Returns is the tragic monster that Batman could become, Two-Face is the monster that Batman perhaps already has become. There's a telling line by Dick Grayson where he says that he was picturing Two-Face when trying to punch Batman.
I imagined it was him that I was fighting. Even when I was fighting you, and all the pain went away.
Dr. Chase Meridian even makes the comparison between both of them in the very first scene. Riddler's motivation is to become more powerful than Bruce Wayne, but Two-Face's motivation is to turn Batman into himself, hence why he uses the same acid that turned him into Two-Face in the opening action sequence with the vault. There's an interesting moment when Bruce Wayne picks up his Two-Face doll in Chase's office and becomes sad all of a sudden. Who is he sad for in this moment? Is he reminded of his troubling nightmares? Is he sad because of what he has become? Is he feeling the guilt for what he let happen to Harvey Dent? Arguably, all of the above. Bruce Wayne is the greatest riddle of all. This shot emphasizing the W of Wayne's name before he is handed a riddle by Edward Nygma is no accident. After all, which letter do questions usually start with?
We'll find out today!
Part 4, Answers with an I. Another motif in this movie, which relates more to answers than it does questions, is eyes. The search for truth in this movie, for every character, is best symbolized by the eyes motif. It's a useful and granted often used motif, as it can symbolize various things. It can stand in for obsession, surveillance, forward thinking, a bunch of things. Usually the eyes being the windows of the soul, as the saying goes, they tend to imply a deeper meaning to something or someone, another level that only some can see. The first time we see eyes as a standout image in this movie is when Two-Face crashes his helicopter into a big eye-shaped neon sign that says, "Tired eyes? Use OcuWash." This is a very literal depiction of Two-Face forcing Batman to see something, to open his eyes. From Two-Face's point of view, Batman is the villain. Perhaps he wants Batman to see how poisoned he is, to face what he has done to him. You could arguably go back a little bit before that to when we first meet Two-Face. You kind of have an idea about who this guy is the first time you see him because you just see one side of him. But when he turns around and reveals that eye, you know there's a lot more to this guy. This is a reflection of how Edward Nygma wants to be Bruce Wayne. Two-Face doesn't want to be Batman, he wants Batman to be him. The only justice in that case would be, in Two-Face's opinion, that's right, an eye for an eye, literally. And again, we get more eye symbolism when the helicopter crashes directly into the Statue of Liberty's eyes. The destruction involved in both instances symbolizing the disfiguration that Two-Face endured, but also how blind Batman is to his sins. Blind as a bat, you could say. Think about it, when Two-Face crashes the helicopter, one eye is destroyed. You could say his own. When Batman crashes the helicopter, both eyes are destroyed, thereby blinding the statue. Eyes are a motif for Riddler too. Even the window to Edward Nygma's office looks like a big eye. or target even, and by crashing his boss through it, killing him, it's another cathartic moment for Enigma and the start of him becoming another broken character like Two-Face. Another disfiguration of sorts, albeit a more figurative one. The eye motif comes back during the circus scene as it is the first thing we see and the last thing, as the flying Graysons plummet down to a big eye/target. What does this mean? Well, an interpretation could be the targeting of Batman specifically by Two-Face, which comes with collateral damage. It's a very real threat by the villain to Batman that if he continues to exist, the eye, the target, will move to other young innocents like Dick Grayson, and the cycle will continue. Batman's legacy will become pain and death. We zoom into Bruce's eyes when the Graysons fall. The Graysons were never the target of this tragedy, he was, and he knows it. Not only that, but he remembers it. Where were his parents killed? Right in the middle of their own eye, their own target. Soon after that recollection, Bruce says,
I killed him.
Which Alfred promptly points out to him. An eye makes all the difference. Did Bruce Wayne kill the Graysons? No, but Batman didn't save them either. Just like there was no one there to save his own parents or Harvey Dent's disfiguration. Has anything changed? To Bruce, in that moment, it certainly doesn't feel like it.
Some hero I turned out to be.
Dick's line, "some hero I turned out to be," could easily come from Bruce's mouth at this point. As could everything Dick says to Batman during this particular outburst.
Bastard! It should have been you! It's your fault!
Dick Grayson deep down knows Bruce did everything he could, and deep down Bruce knows he's not to blame for his parents' death, but there remains something missing for both of them. The target motif is only hinted at for most of the film, but it really comes in full force in this scene where Riddler and Two-Face play a game of Battleship, where they literally target Batman and Robin with actual weapons. I think the target thing relates to the idea of focus, how these characters' focus changes radically and fluidly. And also because everything comes in twos, you could see the target as the second eye. The search for answers for these characters requires a radical change in focus, inward, but Edward Nygma and Harvey Dent are too far gone for that. So they redirect their attention outwardly. Part 5. Choice. Bruce shutting down the Batcave, seemingly forever, is illustrated with this shot of turning the lights off, which happens to look like an eye. Bruce is indeed deciding to shut his eyes and not confront the real problem here. But he's also making a choice, a very big and dangerous choice. He's choosing to not let Batman control his life, to not be alone anymore. Unfortunately, this isolates him from his wannabe partner Dick Grayson and ultimately completely backfires on him. Just before that, he has a vision. A flashback where a bat flies towards him as a kid and it looks like it's coming out of an eye. We cut to his gaze and in that moment, he remembers why he became Batman in the first place and perhaps starts to doubt his decision big time. The zoom into his eye when he's been shot and he's upside down, turning into a zoom out of the eye the right way around, signals to us that a reality check is about to be sent to him, and indeed, Alfred sure doesn't sugarcoat anything.
I'm afraid they've taken Dr. Meridian. Master Dick has run away. The cave has been destroyed. And there's another riddle.
Thanks, Al. Thanks for cheering him up. Riddler is obsessed, and having finally proven to be as smart as he always thought he was, he presents Batman with an impossible choice. Save only one of the people he cares the most about. Notice the button on Riddler's cane is a third eye on the skull. He thinks he is enlightened, but as we all know, he is about to be proven wrong.
I see without seeing. To me, darkness is as clear as daylight. What am I?
And so, using his own weapon, riddles, the Riddler is defeated. But is he defeated only by his superior intellect? No. What truly defeats him is Bruce and Batman's ability to make a difficult choice. Choice turns out to be the key difference between these two. Both Edward Nygma and Bruce Wayne were insecure with who they were, but ultimately, by facing his ghosts, understanding them, Bruce came out on top. Edward ends up being a victim of his own misguided ego and perceived superior intelligence, which is why Riddler sees the Bat himself once Batman defeats him, just like in Bruce Wayne's vision. Edward Nygma is gone. The Riddler now sees himself as Batman. The obsession Edward had with Bruce Wayne has transferred entirely to Batman, and he has lost himself entirely in the process. Or, you could also see his obsession with Bruce Wayne as having added Batman to the mix. Two-Face's downfall is also symbolized as the illusion of choice backfiring. Harvey thinks he is in control of the situation when he has the upper hand in the watery grave at the end. Another eye? But the coin was always controlling him, not the other way around. When Batman throws the coins at him, Two-Face finds himself unable to think straight, unable to choose the right coin, the right way forward. He is lost, and he pays the heaviest price. The impact of the past and the urgency of resolving all of this is symbolized through a time motif in the movie. You've got an hourglass device over here, clock riddles, clock sounds at the end, the clock behind Chase Meridian, Two-Face's 2 minutes countdown, the box obviously looks like a giant hourglass, and in fact, both Two-Face and Batman break Nigma's box. So there's a parallel there. Was Alfred correct that broken wings mend in time? Possibly, but as the movie shows, it's not that easy. The genius of Batman Forever lies in its exploration of the psychology of heroes and villains. This is not a particularly complex movie. It's a very lighthearted and fun action film, so it doesn't explore all of this in a deep way at all. But it gives you just enough character development, just enough interesting motifs, inner and physical conflicts to create a story with genuinely interesting elements at its heart that stick with you and keep you intrigued without you necessarily realizing why. Batman Forever is never going to be seen as a thinking man's movie, but putting it next to Batman and Robin, I think, is undervaluing the amount of work that the writers, director, art directors, and production designers put into bringing all these clever ideas to life through succinct dialogue and striking visuals rather than big, boring monologues. This film has always felt closer to Batman the Animated Series in this way. That show had short episodes, so not a ton of time to dig into its deep themes, but it still explored them in clever, memorable little ways. The Clayface episode, for example, may on the surface be this big monster versus Batman kind of deal, but there's a lot more going on underneath it all. Clayface is a complex character, and you feel the tragedy of what he's going through and the sadness of Batman having to deal with such an enemy. Same for Two-Face. Where Batman Forever shines is in its ability to dig into characters and what makes them tick, without feeling heavy-handed and pretentious. This is a very simple, silly movie, but there are compelling elements to it, and these are worth a good amount of praise. Much like Tim Burton created complex yet larger-than-life characters, so does Joel Schumacher achieve this in Batman Forever. And this is why this film, while it may not be as good as its predecessors, is a worthy successor. Batman and his rogue galleries are interesting characters individually, and their stories, how they intertwine, are often fascinating. Batman Forever understands this, and while it's embracing more of an Adam West kind of vibe, it doesn't forget that, and it respects the source material enough to bring layers to the table and give us plenty to think about when it comes to the nature of heroes, the duality that maybe we all face to a certain extent, the questions we ask the world and ourselves, and the answers that can make or break us.